Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of Embrace the Opposite. My name is Andrew. Before I get into the video, guys, I just want to thank everybody that has been invested in the site in some way, whether that's been sharing, liking, or subscribing. I really appreciate it. It encourages me, and hopefully some of the content inspires you. Topic today, guys, how about this, is really about how we should be interacting with our spouse, with our life partners. How much devotion should we have to making that relationship work? So, as it happens all the time, we find ourselves in arguments and disagreements, in times of separation where we're not understanding our partners. One of the comparisons that I make to those times is really going through a slump. So I played basketball a lot throughout my life. I still try to play sometimes today. But in my younger days, when I was playing professionally and I had an issue happen or a slump happen in my game, it affected me in all aspects of my life. And I think that we should look at our relationships in that same way. When we're going through a slump, we really got to do what we need to do to get out of that slump, right? We really got to focus on that, make that a priority, be devoted to working through that. I think one of the main issues we make as human beings is not devoting enough time to our closest relationships, to our spouse, to our life partner, to making that relationship be successful. We go through life, we go through day to day, and we experience what we experience. If we don't feel like working through it at that moment, we'll let that time pass. We'll be arguing with each other, we'll be upset with each other, we won't talk to each other. And that time goes through. Eventually it'll come back around because we're together, right? But I think there's something to be gleaned, if you will, from the idea of devoting yourself to a job, a sport, working through your issues in those areas, and also taking that same approach and working through those issues in your relationship. When my wife and I have a disagreement, a lot happens. A lot happens within me emotionally and psychologically. A lot happens within her in the same ways. And there's a lot that's on the table. There's a lot that can be, there's a big cost to that, if you will. Meaning we go our separate ways, we don't talk, we're upset with one another. When I played basketball and I had a bad game or I had a move that I needed to work on, I would devote myself to becoming better at it. I would spend time with it. I would watch film. I would study other players that do it well. And it was really an understanding idea in my mind. I put in the time and hard work and the devotion to the craft, and I will become better at it. And I think we need to start looking at our relationships in the same way, guys. We need to start looking at our relationships as a job, and not a job in a way of labor all the time, but a job in a way of being committed to make something be successful, to make something successful in our lives. And that's just as much as my responsibility as it is my wife's responsibility, or as it is your partner's responsibility. You have to go through it. You have to ask questions. You have to realize that your partner thinks in a different way than you do, and how can I relate to that? You have to spend time with accepting the way that they work through their arguments, or accepting the way that they work through pain or emotion. And we have to become better. We have to put a plan and a goal in place, just like you would if you were working on if your manager or boss gave you a project. You have to put a plan in place. You have to put the right people in the right positions to do the job successfully. And that's what you have to do inside of your own mind. Marriage isn't supposed to come easy. Partnership isn't supposed to come easy. These things take time, they take work, and they take commitment. In the same way you would commit yourself to a sport, to a craft, to your job, we need to commit ourselves in the same way to making our relationships successful, to making our relationships part of that devotion aspect in our lives. Because I think when we do that, we'll really see an increase in the amount of love that we share with one another, the amount of attention that we take to detail, and really grow in that relationship. Remember, always devote yourself to that close, intimate relationship, because when you do that, you can really pull success out of it, just like you would in any other area of your life. You're going to get out what you put into it. And that's what I want to see for my life and my relationship. My wife and I, we sit down, we talk, we work through possible outcomes that we may face, or obstacles that we may face in the future. We set goals for ourselves, and these things are obtainable goals. These things are quantifiable goals that we can measure, and they're things that you want to do in your closest relationships, guys. Things like, when we argue, next time, let's make sure we do X, Y, and Z within an hour afterwards. We hug, we apologize, we share a funny story, you try to make each other laugh. The more you hold these things inside, the less you communicate. Communication is so important. And I think really what we underestimate, guys, is the amount of gratitude that we can have for one another. We have a large threshold for that as human beings. And I think the other thing we underestimate is the amount of happiness we can receive. I think we get into relationships and it's just going like this. It's just the standard movement throughout the relationship, where what I think we can see is an increase in the amount of happiness that we get once we devote ourselves to loving someone. It's got to be, Kobe Bryant has this show called Details on ESPN, and I joke with my wife, I say I'd like to have a show like that detailed marriages and detailed relationships, because I feel like we need that sort of specificity. We need that sort of attention to detail that in a relationship that could help someone understand, okay, maybe I wasn't doing that the right way. Maybe I wasn't treating them with the right amount of respect. Maybe I didn't study their psyche enough to understand how I should be treating them. And that's what it comes down to, guys. We got to talk. We got to ask questions. We got to make ourselves available and give our attention to our partners so that we can both be successful in the relationship. So guys, I hope that was helpful today. Don't forget to like and share, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.